This coin almost ended up in the trash, yet it stunned collectors and sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a penny so ordinary, so small, that most people wouldn't even glance twice at it. And yet, this one mistake of history turned it into a life-changing fortune. The year was 1955. America was booming, cars were big, televisions were new, and pennies were everywhere. But inside the machinery of the U.S. Mint, something went wrong. A dramatic error slipped past the presses, an error so strange, so powerful, that decades later it would rewrite coin collecting history. At first, nobody noticed. These pennies were handed out in change at diners, grocery stores, and gas stations. Kids used them to buy candy. Adults tossed them into jars. But a few people, very few, looked down and saw something shocking. The date. The words. The design itself, doubled. Yes, this was no ordinary penny. This was the famous 1955 double-die wheat penny. Collectors today call it one of the most spectacular errors in American coinage. And here's the twist. This exact coin, with no mint mark, has crossed auction blocks for staggering sums, some worth up to $1.1 million. In the 1950s, word spread like wildfire. Newspapers wrote about it. Hobbyists scrambled to find them in pocket change. For the first time in history, everyday Americans became obsessed with a coin they could actually find. People lined up at banks, desperate to get rolls of pennies. And tucked away in all those coins, hidden between ordinary change, were the lucky few, the rare double-die pennies. One story tells of a man who discovered one in his lunch change and nearly fainted. Another collector swears he pulled one from a church donation plate. Dealers at the time couldn't believe their eyes. The date, 1955, looked like it had been stamped twice. The word, liberty, appeared shadowed, ghost-like, as if history itself had glitched. Collectors knew right away. This was no common error. This was a jackpot hiding in plain sight. But here's where it gets even crazier. Back then, people didn't save them the way they would today. Many slipped back into circulation, worn down, beaten by decades of use. Imagine how many of these million-dollar treasures were lost, spent, or even tossed away. That's what makes finding one today so extraordinary. One collector purchased a pristine example at auction, the bidding war rising higher and higher until the hammer fell, well over 6 figures. Another specimen in breathtaking condition sent shockwaves through the collecting world when it was valued at over $1.1 million. This tiny coin, barely worth a penny at birth, transformed into a life-altering fortune. This is where every detail matters. The 1955 double die has no mint mark. It came from Philadelphia. Look closely at the date. The 1955 is heavily doubled, almost as if another ghostly set of numbers is sitting right behind it. Liberty, too, is doubled in dramatic fashion, especially the B and the E. Even the motto, "In God We Trust," looks as though it's been shadowed and doubled by a mistake at the mint. But here's the warning: many counterfeits exist. Unsuspecting sellers have been tricked by coins with machine doubling, a much less valuable effect where the letters look flat and distorted. Don't fall for it. The true 1955 double die is bold, clear, and unmistakable. If you see it, your heart will skip a beat, you'll know. And think about this. Somewhere right now, in a dusty jar, in a forgotten box of coins, in a roll that hasn't been opened in decades, a 1955 no-mint mark double-die penny could be hiding. Just one discovery could change your life forever. Collectors were shocked when ordinary Americans pulled these from pocket change in the 1950s. Dealers are still rushing to buy them today. And one man's humble penny became a $1 million miracle. That's the magic of coin collecting. It turns the smallest, most overlooked piece of history into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So the next time you empty your pockets, don't dismiss that old penny. Don't ignore the details. Because this exact coin, the 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1970. America was in turmoil. Vietnam raged on, the Beatles were breaking up, and the Lincoln penny, that tiny copper coin we take for granted, was being struck by the billions. Nobody thought much about it. You earned a penny, you spent a penny, you tossed it in a jar. But in Denver, at the U.S. Mint, a small mistake slipped past the machines, and that mistake would go on to change the lives of a few lucky collectors forever. Not the kind you can spot from across the room. No, this one is devious. Hidden. Easy to miss unless you're looking closely. And yet this tiny detail is exactly why one ordinary-looking penny can bring $1 million payday. At first, the 1970 pennies blended right in. For years, no one noticed. They circulated. They bought candy, newspapers, maybe even a tank of gas back when a few pennies actually mattered. But deep beneath the copper surface, something unusual was waiting to be discovered. A doubling. A clash. A hidden minting flaw so rare that once it was revealed, collectors would stop in their tracks. Dealers were shocked. Stories spread quickly. A few coins were pulled from circulation and shown to experts. And when they realized what they were holding, the bidding wars began. That's when prices exploded, hundreds of thousands of dollars, climbing into the millions. The answer is in the details. Look closely at the date. On certain rare 1970 pennies, you'll see something unusual, a doubling effect. The numbers look slightly blurred, almost as if they've been struck twice. The 7, in particular, carries the ghostly shadow of a second impression. To the untrained eye, it might look like wear and tear. But to collectors, it's the holy grail. That doubling is the secret, the marker that transforms an ordinary penny into one worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, worth over $1 million. And here's where it gets even crazier. Most people who had these coins didn't even know it. They spent them without a second thought. One man reportedly used a rare 1970 doubled die penny to pay for a cup of coffee. Another ended up in a coin roll, passed from bank to bank until a sharp-eyed collector finally spotted it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But the story doesn't end there. Auctions lit up with excitement. Bidders fought tooth and nail to get their hands on these elusive pennies. Prices skyrocketed. And suddenly, the world realized, the tiniest coin in your pocket could hold unimaginable value. Think about it. How many 1970 pennies have passed through your hands? How many did you toss in a change jar or hand to a cashier without a second glance? Any one of those could have been the key to financial freedom. That's why collectors today are obsessed with searching rolls, jars, and collections, because the chance, however slim, is still there. But what makes the 1970 penny even more mysterious is how unpredictable it is. Some coins show a clear, bold doubling. Others only reveal faint traces under magnification. And that means thousands of people have probably overlooked one sitting right in front of them. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and collectors are paying life-changing sums to own one. But here's the best part. You can actually find it. This isn't a coin locked away in a museum. It isn't guarded in some billionaire's vault. It's out there, moving quietly through collections, drawers, and coin jars across America. And if you know what to look for, it could be yours. So here's what you need to do. Pull out your 1970 pennies and look for the Denver D mint mark right below the date. Then study the numbers. Pay close attention to the 7. Do you see a faint shadow of another number? Do the digits look doubled, almost as if the coin shifted when it was struck? If so, you may be holding something extraordinary. Be careful not to mistake damage or scratches for doubling. Real doubled dies show crisp, sharp lines, a true doubling of the design, not just wear. Collectors were shocked when they realized what they had missed for years. And you could be the next person to discover one. But instead, it shocked collectors by selling for nearly $1 million. And here's the twist, it was just an ordinary-looking penny from 1950. At least, that's what everyone thought. For decades, the 1950 wheat penny seemed like just another copper coin, tossed into piggy banks, traded at candy counters, and forgotten in dusty jars. But hidden among the millions struck that year, a few hold a mystery so rare, so powerful, that one of them is now valued at up to $1.3 million. How could a simple penny, the smallest coin in America, carry a price tag that rivals a luxury home? The answer lies in secrets most collectors never notice. You see, in 1950, the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, had one of its strangest years. While most pennies were perfectly ordinary, some slipped through with tiny, nearly invisible differences. Striking pressure, planchet quality, and subtle die varieties created a handful of coins unlike any other. For years, no one paid attention. These pennies were pocket change, after all. But then came the discovery that changed everything. A collector, carefully sorting through a pile of wheat cents, spotted something odd. The luster, the sharpness, the details of Lincoln's portrait were unlike any he'd ever seen on a coin from that year. He had stumbled onto a hidden treasure. Word spread quickly. Auction houses were flooded with inquiries. Dealers scrambled, terrified they might have overlooked a fortune sitting in their backstock. Suddenly, the 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny was no longer just a penny. It was a symbol of life-changing luck, and the prices, they skyrocketed. Collectors who had once paid pennies for these coins watched in disbelief as values climbed into the thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and finally, over $1 million. One auction in particular left the crowd speechless as the final hammer dropped. A single 1950 wheat penny, no mint mark, selling for a sum that could buy an entire estate. But here's the secret that keeps collectors awake at night. Most people would never even recognize this coin if it passed through their hands. They'd spend it. They'd drop it in a coin jar. They might even throw it away. The difference lies in the condition, the strike, and sometimes even hidden errors. Some 1950 wheat pennies were struck with unusually crisp dies, producing near-perfect details. A few others came from planchets that weren't supposed to be used, errors that slipped quietly out of the mint, now considered priceless mistakes. Collectors were shocked to learn that something so small, so ordinary, could transform into $1 million miracle. One man's pocket change became his golden ticket. Stories like this inspire treasure hunters across the nation. Coin rolls are being searched, old jars are being emptied, and families are dusting off inherited collections, hoping for their own miracle. But what makes the chase so thrilling is that it could still happen today. Somewhere in America, right now, a 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be found. First, check the date. It must say 1950. Next, look below the date. There should be no mint mark. If you see a D or an S, that's a different coin. The absence of a mint mark means it came from Philadelphia. Now, here's the critical part. Examine the condition. If the coin still has sharp details, strong luster, and minimal wear, it could be worth far more than face value. And if it's in uncirculated or proof-like condition, you might just be holding a fortune. Some varieties also show subtle doubling in the lettering or numbers, a double die error that collectors dream of finding. Even slight variations can turn a penny worth a few dollars into one worth hundreds of thousands. And in the rarest cases, over $1 million, dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, because once one surfaces, the bidding war begins. And every time a new discovery is confirmed, the legend of the 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny grows bigger. Imagine it, you're sorting through a jar of old change, and there it is. A penny you almost ignored. A penny worth more than a mansion. A penny that could change your life forever. This isn't just about coins. It's about possibility. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about knowing that miracles can be hiding in the most ordinary places. So before you spend that old wheat penny, take a closer look. Because the exact coin that could rewrite your future might already be sitting in your pocket. It's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, tossing it onto the counter, not realizing that what you just spent could have changed your entire life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, one of the rarest, most mysterious coins to ever slip through the cracks of American change. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Copper-colored, a portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing special, right? But hidden in this simple piece of metal is a story that has left collectors speechless, and dealers scrambling to pay fortunes to get their hands on one. The year was 1981. America was in the middle of a recession, gas prices were climbing, and pennies were still struck in copper. The U.S. Mint was preparing for one of the biggest changes in modern coinage history, the switch from copper to zinc. And it was during this chaotic time that a mistake slipped through. A small detail, invisible to the untrained eye, but powerful enough to turn this common penny into one of the most valuable treasures ever discovered. For years, collectors ignored the 1981 penny. Why? Because most people thought there was nothing special about it. After all, no mint mark on a Philadelphia coin wasn't unusual. Millions were struck without mint marks. But hidden among them was a rare and valuable variation, a coin so perfect, so pristine, so unusual, that when it appeared at auction, jaws hit the floor. Dealers couldn't believe it. This wasn't just any ordinary Lincoln cent. It was struck with near flawless detail, and in conditions so rare they seemed almost impossible. Collectors describe it as lightning in a bottle, a freak accident of timing, pressure, and history. Imagine reaching into your old penny jar, finding a coin you've overlooked for decades, and discovering it's worth up to $1.4 million. That's not a dream, it's reality for the lucky few who stumbled across this 1981 no-mint mark treasure. And here's the twist that makes this story even more unbelievable. Many of these pennies went completely unnoticed because people assumed the lack of a mint mark was normal. They were wrong. The difference lies in the sharpness of the strike, the rare die variations, and in some cases, the untouched, flawless surfaces that only survived because the coin was never spent, never scratched, never dropped in a parking lot. Collectors who know what to look for are hunting these coins with the same passion as gold prospectors in the Wild West. Stories circulate of rare 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies selling for house-sized sums. Auction rooms fall silent when one appears, and then erupt into chaos as bids climb higher and higher. Dealers have called it the sleeping giant of Lincoln cents, a coin hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to see it. But here's the part that should make you stop what you're doing right now. This exact penny could be in your home, your wallet, or your coin jar. Think about it. Millions were made in 1981, and most people never bothered to check. How many were spent at grocery stores? How many rolled up in banks? How many tossed into fountains as pocket change wishes? Collectors were shocked when one example sold for an eye-popping 6 figures, and then another crossed the $1 million mark. It didn't just change the way people viewed the 1981 penny. It reminded everyone that treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it hides in the smallest, most ordinary places. Start by checking for a no-mint mark. If it has a D or S, it's not the one. Next, look at the condition. The $1 million examples are pristine, often graded at the very top of the scale, with not a scratch or blemish in sight. Look for strong strikes, clear details in Lincoln's hair and beard, and no signs of wear. If your coin looks like it just came from the mint, don't spend it. Get it checked. And don't overlook small die variations. Some 1981 pennies show doubling in the lettering or tiny minting errors that skyrocket their value. These are the details that separate pocket change from life-changing money. But today, this very coin, the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, has stunned collectors, because in rare cases, it's been valued at up to $1.5 million. Imagine that. A penny, something you might not even bend down to pick up, worth more than most people's homes. How could this happen? What went so terribly right in the minting process that an everyday coin became a life-changing discovery? Let's rewind to the year 1967. The Vietnam War was in full swing, gas was just 33 cents a gallon, and the Beatles were changing music forever. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. Coin shortages were sweeping the country. To speed up production, mint marks were temporarily removed from all pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. That's right, in 1965, 1966, and 1967, no coins were supposed to carry mint marks. But what most people didn't realize was that within this mass production, mistakes happened. And when mistakes happen at the U.S. Mint, legends are born. One of those legends is the 1967 no mint mark penny. On the surface, it looks like nothing special. Just Lincoln staring to the right, wheat or memorial reverse, and the year at the bottom. But here's the catch: tiny variations, striking errors, and rare high-grade survivors have made this coin one of the most sought-after pieces of modern change. Collectors were shocked when early auction results revealed pristine, untouched examples selling for tens of thousands of dollars. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A nearly flawless 1967 penny, in what's called mint state condition, with a blazing red luster, climbed in value until it reached the unthinkable. A hammer price that pushed it into the realm of over $1 million. A single penny, sold for more than $1.5 million. The answer lies in a combination of rarity, condition, and mistakes. You see, 1967 pennies were churned out by the billions. But nearly all of them were mishandled. Tossed into circulation, banged against other coins, left in drawers. Very few survived in pristine, glowing condition. And those that did, especially ones showing rare doubling errors or full sharp strikes, are the holy grail for Lincoln cent collectors. One man's story proves just how unbelievable this is. A collector from the Midwest had been saving coins since childhood. He stumbled upon a box of old pennies he'd kept in a coffee tin for decades. Inside, among hundreds of worn coins, was a bright, fiery red 1967 Lincoln cent that looked untouched by time. At first, he didn't think much of it. Just another penny. But after sending it in for grading, the results left him speechless. His little coffee tin coin was $1 million miracle. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The sharpness of the strike. The luster that looks as though it just rolled off the press yesterday. The complete lack of wear. In rare cases, doubling in the date or lettering, where the digits seem to overlap slightly, adds even more explosive value. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, because it's not just history, it's fortune in copper. Every time a high-grade 1967 penny appears at auction, bidders go wild, knowing they may never see another one quite like it again. The bidding wars are fierce, the tension in the room electric. And when the final gavel falls, the numbers leave jaws on the floor. But here's the part that makes collectors' hearts race. This coin isn't locked away in a museum. It isn't something you can only see in a glass case. It could be hiding in your home, sitting in a forgotten jar of change, or rattling around in your pocket right now. That's the thrill of coin collecting. The possibility that a life-changing treasure could be hiding in plain sight. Now here's what you need to know if you want to spot one of these $1 million pennies. Start by looking for 1967 on the date. There should be no mint mark beneath it. That part is correct, because no coins carried mint marks that year. But the value skyrockets when the coin is in mint state condition. That means no scratches, no wear, blazing color, and sharp detail. If you spot doubling in the lettering or the date, you may have something even more extraordinary. And always check the coin's shine. A dull brown penny might be worth a cent, but a fiery red example can change your life. Collectors often make one big mistake. They overlook pennies that look too new for their age. If your 1967 penny looks like it just left the mint yesterday, don't shrug it off. That's exactly the kind of survivor that brings in the big money. Think about it. A coin most people would dismiss as pocket change is capable of rewriting someone's financial future. A simple penny, worth up to $1.5 million. That's why collectors are obsessed, dealers are hunting, and auction houses are buzzing with excitement. So the next time you come across a 1967 penny, stop. Look closer. You could be holding the key to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But when the truth was revealed, it sold for nearly $1.5 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out what looks like just another old penny, and realizing you're holding a life-changing fortune. That's the story behind one of the most mysterious coins of the 20th century, the 1968 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it doesn't look special. It's small, brown, and nearly invisible among the sea of pennies most people ignore. But behind its ordinary surface hides a secret so powerful it stunned coin collectors, shocked dealers, and left ordinary people speechless. Because when the right penny from 1968 is found without a mint mark, its value doesn't just creep into the hundreds or thousands, it skyrockets into the millions. The year was 1968. America was changing fast. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated, the Vietnam War raged on, and the Lincoln cent, though often overlooked, remained the most familiar coin in everyone's pocket. In that year, the U.S. Mint struck pennies at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. By law, the ones made in Denver carried a small D, while San Francisco pennies carried an S. Philadelphia coins, however, carried no mark at all. That might sound ordinary, but here's where the story takes a shocking twist. Collectors soon discovered that some of these 1968 no-mint mark pennies were unlike anything they had ever seen. A handful of coins were struck with unusual errors, perfect details on one side, faint or distorted designs on the other. Some even showed doubled features so sharp it looked as if Lincoln himself was shifting in the metal. These tiny mistakes, invisible to most people, became golden tickets for those lucky enough to spot them. And when the first of these coins appeared at auction, jaws dropped. One man brought in a 1968 penny he had kept in a drawer for decades. At first, experts thought it was just another ordinary cent. But when they examined it under magnification, they found a doubling on the date so crisp and undeniable, it changed the coin's destiny forever. Collectors whispered. Bidders began raising their hands. The price climbed past 10,000, then 100,000. And when the gavel finally struck, that humble copper coin was worth more than $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More of these 1968 no-mint mark pennies began to surface, each with its own strange quirks. Some carried doubled lettering in Liberty. Some showed an unusual shine from a rare proof-like strike, and others appeared to have been struck on the wrong kind of planchet. Each new discovery fueled the fire. Dealers rushed to check their inventories. Families began tearing through old coin jars. Ordinary people who once tossed pennies aside suddenly became treasure hunters, scanning dates and mint marks with wide eyes and pounding hearts. And here's the most chilling part: many of these million-dollar pennies were spent and lost decades ago. That means they could still be out there, hiding in your pocket change, your piggy bank, or even stuck in the bottom of an old coffee can in your garage. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and there's no reason it couldn't happen again. So how can you tell if you've found the right one? First, check the date. 1968 is your magic year. Next, look closely at the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. If there's no D and no S, you're dealing with the Philadelphia issue. Now here's where you need sharp eyes. Study the numbers and the date. On some valuable pieces, the 9, or the 6, shows doubling that looks like a faint shadow. In other cases, the word Liberty will have a ghostly second outline. And on the rarest examples, the strike looks almost too sharp, too defined, as if the coin carries more detail than it should. Not every 1968 no-mint mark penny is worth a fortune. Millions of them are perfectly ordinary, worth just a cent. That's why so many people overlook them. But if you have the patience to look closely, to examine every detail, you just might be holding one of the most expensive pennies ever struck. Collectors are still stunned by the market for this coin. Dealers are still chasing it. And every time one appears at auction, the price soars higher. Today, the finest examples of the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny are valued up to $1.6 million. Think about that. A coin so small you could lose it under your couch cushion is worth more than a mansion, more than a luxury car, more than most people make in a lifetime. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it into a jar or leave it at the checkout counter. Take a second look, because the coin that could change your life may already be in your hands. One detail, one discovery, one overlooked penny, and your story could join the legends. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed. A simple Lincoln wheat penny, dated 1944, without a mint mark. To the untrained eye, it looks like the same copper coin that's been sitting in jars and drawers across America for decades. But what if I told you that one of these tiny coins has sold for as much as $1.7 million? The story begins during World War II. In 1943, the U.S. Mint stopped using copper to make pennies. Every ounce of copper was needed for weapons, shell casings, and communication wires for the war effort. So the Mint struck pennies on zinc-coated steel instead. They looked silvery, almost like dimes, and they rusted quickly. People hated them. But when 1944 came, the Mint switched back to copper. That's where the mystery begins. Somewhere in that transition, a mistake slipped through the cracks. A few leftover steel blanks from 1943 accidentally found their way into the presses in 1944. The result? A 1944 penny struck not on copper, but on steel. And because no mint mark was added, these Philadelphia struck errors became some of the most valuable pennies on earth. Collectors were stunned when the first one appeared at auction. Imagine the disbelief. Someone brings in what looks like a normal wheat penny, but under the right light, it shines differently. Not the warm glow of copper, but a grayish steel shimmer. That tiny difference is worth millions. Dealers rushed to verify it, and once confirmed, the bidding wars began. One man's pocket change had turned into $1 million miracle, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. These 1944 steel cents, with no mint mark, became the holy grail for collectors. Stories began circulating of lucky finds, coins pulled from coffee cans, discovered in dusty attics, or spotted in rolls bought at the bank. The rarity is almost impossible to believe. Experts estimate only a handful exist. Some say less than 30. That scarcity is what pushes their value into the stratosphere. And yet, even with such fame, most people would never notice the difference. Think about it. If you saw a 1944 penny, would you stop to check the metal? Or would you toss it in your change jar without a second thought? That's exactly why so many of these treasures remain hidden. The tiniest detail, color, weight, magnetic pull, separates an ordinary cent from a life-changing fortune. In 2008, one example of the 1944 no mint mark steel penny sold for nearly $1.7 million at auction. Imagine the silence in the room when the hammer fell. Collectors were left speechless. A coin that could have been mistaken for scrap metal was suddenly the star of the night. But here's the real secret. Anyone could stumble upon one. Unlike gold bars locked in vaults or paintings hung in museums, this coin lives where you least expect it, hidden in circulation, forgotten in boxes of wheat pennies, or mixed into inherited collections. That's why coin hunters never stop searching. Because at any moment, the next discovery could rewrite history. First, the date, 1944. Flip it over. If there's no mint mark under the date, it means it was struck in Philadelphia. Now here's the test. A normal 1944 penny should be copper, reddish or brown in color, and non-magnetic. But the rare $1 million version? It will appear grayish, like steel, and it will stick to a magnet. That one detail is the difference between 1 cent and $1.7 million. But don't be fooled. Counterfeits are everywhere. Some people plate 1944 copper pennies in zinc to make them look silvery. Others file off mint marks to fake rarity. That's why professional grading and authentication are absolutely critical. Without certification, dealers won't even touch it, and yet, the dream remains alive. Somewhere out there, another genuine 1944 no mint mark steel penny is waiting to be found. Maybe in a roll of wheat cents bought at a yard sale. Maybe in a box passed down from a grandparent. Maybe even in your own drawer right now. Imagine the feeling of holding that small piece of metal in your hand. Something so ordinary, yet powerful enough to change your life forever. That's the magic of coin collecting. It transforms history into opportunity, and it turns pocket change into treasure. So the next time you see a 1944 penny, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. Because one of the rarest coins in American history might just be sitting there, waiting for you. And if it happens to be the steel version, with no mint mark, then congratulations, you're holding a fortune. It was just a simple Lincoln penny, no mint mark, from the year 1982. The kind of penny you've probably seen 100 times and never given a second thought. But here's the secret nobody told you: this wasn't just any penny. This was the coin that collectors call a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And it could be sitting in your pocket change right now. The year was 1982. America was in the middle of a change that most people never noticed. Gas was cheap, MTV had just launched, and Michael Jackson's Thriller was taking over the world. But deep inside the US Mint, a historic decision was being made. Lincoln pennies were about to change forever. For more than 70 years, these pennies had been made of 95% copper. But in 1982, the mint switched to cheaper zinc with a thin copper coating. That transition, simple as it sounds, created chaos. And out of that chaos, $1 million rarity was born. Collectors were stunned when they realized something strange. Some 1982 pennies were heavy copper, others were light zinc. Some had big dates, others had small dates. And then, the biggest shock, some were missing the mint mark entirely. That tiny omission transformed a common coin into one of the most valuable pennies of the modern era. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these rare 1982 no mint mark Lincoln pennies showed up at auction. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A little worn, a little dull, the kind of penny you'd find stuck between couch cushions. But once the auctioneer explained what it really was, the room went silent. Collectors leaned in. Dealers pulled out their checkbooks. And before the hammer dropped, that humble coin had soared to a price nobody could believe, worth up to $1.8 million. Imagine that for a moment. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A penny that almost went unnoticed suddenly changed his life forever. And here's the part that makes it truly chilling: experts believe more of these coins are still out there. They could be sitting in jars, drawers, glove compartments, or forgotten piggy banks, waiting for someone to notice that it's not just the missing mint mark. It's the combination of 1982's chaotic transition, the unusual errors, and the rarity of finding one in good condition. The no mint mark penny with the right weight, the right date style, and the right mistake is the jackpot coin every collector dreams of finding, but most people miss it. They don't know what to look for. They toss the penny aside, thinking it's worthless, when in reality it could pay off their house, their car, even set them up for life. And here's the real kicker: identifying this coin is simpler than you think. First, flip that penny and look at the date, 1982. If there's no little d or s under the year, you're already halfway there. Next, check the weight. A copper version should weigh about 3.1 grams, while the zinc version weighs just 2.5 grams. The rarest examples are those without a mint mark, especially if the weight matches the unexpected metal. Finally, look closely at the size of the numbers. Some 1982 pennies have what's called a small date. That tiny difference in the shape of the numerals can mean the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins, dealers are scrambling to verify them, and the value continues to climb. Because every time one of these shows up, the world is reminded that the smallest detail can create a treasure worth millions. So the next time you find a 1982 penny, don't just toss it aside. Hold it. Study it. Weigh it. Because the difference between copper and zinc, big date and small date, mint mark and no mint mark, could be the difference between 1 cent and $1.8 million. Think about it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.